proposed budget, round dollars, $73 million, with an increase of 1 mil from 2.4925 to 3.4925, generating $9.5 million additional revenue to cover the $7.4 million deficit, and as well have capital funds that are included in the budget for information technology upgrades. What is required by the county code today is for you to adopt a resolution. That's the official action that's been taken today, is to establish a millage rate for 2016.
I'd like to make a motion. This doesn't help get rid of this obligation, but I'm proposing that we take $1.75 million out of the budget, which is the money allocated for capital for the IT system. And again, that's not going to go away. It's a 15-year-old system with a lot of problems. It's down more than it's up. All the departments require this to be a good system. I'm not saying that we're not going to be able to do it. We promised the employees and the court system that this would be addressed. But we will have to do it another way if we can accept taking this out of this budget. And then that would have to be dealt with either by borrowing or leasing or some other way of getting that job done, but at least it wouldn't hit this tax cycle. So that the impact, if you take 1.75 million out, that would get us, because the rest of it is, you heard the pension, 3.6, healthcare, almost $1 million. The children and youth budget is up 86%, and 23 mandates just on Sandusky related stuff. All the arsonists and the all the problems with juvenile offenders are addressed in that area. We talk about the prison. You have a whole sector of society that we are paying hundreds of dollars per day to keep off the streets. That's in that children and youth budget. So you can't not do that. Those are mandates that if you want to have a judge sentence a child to a year of therapy and we only fund half of that, and then they go out and do something heinous to our neighbors, you can't do that. So this is a part of what's left. After you take that 175 out, it gets us to 0.8 of a mil. It's all I could find to do. It defers that one issue to another way of dealing with it, but that's the only thing I can see, and helping to keep the integrity of our system, not only from a safety point of view, we touched on many of the issues of safety that we're responsible for, but also the fiscal health of Lebanon County. So that's my proposal, and I move that we adopt an 0.8.
Have a second. You're not willing to second it. Well, I will second that motion, which and then, of course, opens the floor to discussion.
To keep it simple, I truly believe that an over $8 million reserve fund, and again, I am not sure if it is a capital reserve or it is an operational reserve. I think that needs to be clarified in the coming year. Is excessive. I think a $4.5 million reserve fund, which is 10% of our general fund, is sufficient. That is the amount we borrowed for the TRAN, the Tax Revenue Anticipation Note, in 2015. That is the amount we will need to cover payroll in the first part of the year, so that we don't have to borrow money. On top of that, we're going to be getting $3.5 million back from the state, which would almost cover that $4.5 million. When I look at this, I'm asking, why are we raising taxes? It doesn't make sense to me. And so again, it's a philosophical difference perhaps, but I think it's excessive, and I am not prepared to vote in favor of this motion.
My only comment would be that we've exhausted our options. If we spend down the cash, we are going to be right back here again next year with those same costs, and then we're going to be facing that 40% and we'll have no cash on hand. So this is, more than philosophical. This is comprehension, accepting the facts, and then stepping up and voting to get us on a track that we haven't been on in 20 years. So that's my response to that, and I will call for the question.
I would just like to say that it was my goal and my hope this morning that we could be united as a board in this decision. I do think it is the best decision for the county, and I, with all due respect, Commissioner Litz, I can't imagine that you can sit there and make the statement that we shouldn't do any tax increase at all. Even saying that we cut into those reserves and preserve the $4 million, which are $4.5 million, we still would not be able to cover the actual deficit of the budget. So
I think the money belongs to the people.
It-
That money in the reserve fund is their money. The law says, again, that we must minimize and only put into our budget as nearly as possible the estimated revenues and expenditures for the year in which it is prepared. We have extra. We should address next year any increase that we need. This year, we do not need an increase.
So your motion is to establish the millage to be 3.2925 mils, up from
And I know that's,
4.925.
that gets it from 40% to 32. I know it's not what we're trying to, but that's as much as I could.
there is a motion on the floor to increase the real estate tax 0.8 mil. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
The budget passes 2-1 vote.
I'd like to make another motion, if I may.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion that we reopen the budget in January to discuss this further. Hopefully by then, the state budget will be passed and our money will be on the way, and we can see our way to remove the need for a tax increase.
I'll second it for discussion purposes. I think the opportunity would be there in January or when to discuss it and see if we need to do it at that point.
Yeah, according to the statute, you can discuss it in any way you want. You have to take formal action to reopen it if you
I'm trying to make that motion now.
if you intend to change it by more than 10%.
And-
Either direction, actually, but if you would reduce the budget by more than $7 million, you have to move to reopen the budget and then adopt another millage.
So is the, just for clarification, Commissioner, is the premise of your motion that we will be able to decrease the budget by $7 million in some way by sometime in January?
I respectfully would bring out another point in the argument, and that is after the commissioners have all been reelected, it is called a municipal election. And after any municipal election, we can reopen the budget. And my motion is to reopen the budget so that we can discuss this and eliminate this tax increase.
Here, but I think that action would then be by the new board that's sworn in after January 4th. Right?
To the end of the year.
If the next board, which is still the same individuals, but only after January 4th when you're sworn in, if it's the wish of that board to reopen the budget, then that motion would be post-January 4th, post-swearing.
We could do it then.
Yes, it's my understanding that we can reopen the budget, display it for 10 days instead of 20, and then we can vote on it and implement it by February the 15th. That is my request, that is my motion, and you can do it now, and that would be what I would like, and we can also do it afterwards as a reinforcement.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of Commissioner Litz's motion to reopen the budget in January indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. I want to consider opening it in January, but not today, because I don't think we can, by statute, be doing it until we're sworn in January. So I'm willing to talk about it in January, but not, I'm sorry.
Well, her motion was that we are dictating now that it will be
Oh, okay.
opened, if I understood it
Okay,
correctly.
then my vote is no. I'll deal with it when I'm in office to do that.
And from just an integrity standpoint, I certainly would be willing to entertain that motion after we're sworn in, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay?